Those who believe that bombs will bring quiet, that wall will create defense, and that war will bring security, they are the naive. Because now they are failing, not only for now 11 and a half months, they are failing for a century. They are wrong, and they are following a false leaders and a false prophet. We, the peacemakers, we are the voice of peace. We are the voice of reason, the voice of logic. And even though our solution, our path might seem radical, this is the only possible path.
So, welcome everyone to this particular podcast of Middle East Insights. And we are very, very privileged to have Maoz Inon with us. And this is really a certain kind of dream come true to know people like him exist, and to also see the kind of manner in which he has turned his despair, grief, and pain into something which is more positive, something which is more hopeful. So, for my students right now here, Maoz Inon is an Israeli peace entrepreneur. He has founded several peace-focused tourism initiatives within Israel and the Middle East, including the Jesus Trail, Fauzi Azar Inn, and Abraham Hostel and Tour. Since the murder of his parents in the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023, he has become a voice for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. In May 2024, he participated in the Arena de Paz peace event in Verona with his friend and partner, the Palestinian peace entrepreneur Aziz Abu Sarah. The two of them received an embrace and support from Pope Francis and gained widespread media coverage internationally. Earlier this year, in April, both of them also participated in the annual TED conference, where their conversation was the opening session's first talk. Amidst unimaginable grief, trauma, pain, Maoz Sir is a living embodiment of how one can hope, how one can differentiate, or perhaps transform one's own personal loss in this milieu into something which empowers everyone else. So thank you so much, sir, for being there today with us. And my first question to you, sir, is what are the challenges you face in being an Israeli peace entrepreneur?
So thankful for you for inviting me to speak to you and to your students. It's extremely important, and I'm honored. So I just want to say that before I start saying anything else. So really, I'm so thankful for you.
Thank you, sir. Toda.
It's the situation now is devastating, and horrible war is being waged in Gaza, in the West Bank, with Lebanon. I lost my parents and many other of my childhood friends and their parents and their children, and there is so much suffering and pain in this region where I lived all my life. So many of my friends are losing their loved one. So many peace activists and peacemakers are losing family members and friends. So amidst all that suffering and pain, we must rise and to say this is not the answer. War is not the answer. There is only one answer, and radical answer, that peace is possible. So many will say, Maoz, not now, or with whom, or we must win first. But I say, now is the time. Because when the Israeli people, at the Old Testament, in the time of the Bible, when they were walking in the desert with Prophet Moses, following the pillar of God, they were crying They were in the desert, so they were crying for water. And now we are walking between the ashes, between the battlefield, between the suffering. And there is no better time than now to cry for peace. And then many are telling me, but Maoz, you are naive. It's naive to speak about peace now. So I tell it's Israelis, Palestinian, or international community. I tell them, no, you are the naive. Because I looked in the dictionary after so many people told me, Maoz, you are naive, you are naive. So I said, I want to make sure what naive is. And naive means someone who believes to anything. A fool that believes for anything. So those who believe that bombs will bring quiet, that wall will create defense, and that war will bring security, they are the naive. Because now they are failing, not only for now 11 and a half months, they are failing for a century. They are wrong, and they are following a false leaders and a false prophet. We, the peacemakers, we are the voice of peace. We are the voice of reason, the voice of logic. And even though our solution, our path might seem radical, this is the only possible path.
So, sir, I don't want to be the typical journalist kind of, personality asking questions and re-traumatizing you. But personally, how did 7th of October and what happened later unfolded for you?
So again, it started, and I won't go to the actual, anyone who really wants to can Google me, and I went into details to what happened on October 7th. But it wasn't a mental suffering or a pain. It was a physical pain. A physical pain that I'm drowning. I literally drowned in an ocean of sorrow and agony. It's a physical pain. I physically felt that I'm broken into thousands of pieces. It's not just crying. You are feeling broken. It's a physical trauma. And then my young brother, and in the Jewish culture, we have a 7-day of wake ceremony. We call it Shiva. Shiva is 7. So from the morning till nighttime, friends, family, neighbors, sometimes people we never met before would come to pay their condolences and to cry with us. So in the second day of the Shiva of this week, my young brother, we are 5 siblings, my young brother asked the family to send a universal message that we are seeking no revenge. That we don't want to revenge the death of our parents because it will never bring them back, no matter what we'll do. And how many people will die, our beloved parents won't come back. And that night I had a dream that I also shared it in my TED, but I will share it with you because it's still very fresh in my memory. I was dreaming that the entire humanity is crying with me. And our tears go down our face to our bodies. And our bodies were wounded, burned, and crushed from the war. And our tears wash our bodies and healed us. We become one healthy human being, one healthy humanity. And we kept crying and crying. And then our tears went down to the ground. And I was looking on the ground. It was all soaked with blood. You could not see land or grass or anything, just blood. And our tears went down to the earth and washed the blood and purified the land. And then the land became beautiful and shining and brilliant. And then I could see a path, the path to peace. And waking up from my dream, I've decided to choose this path. That the only way to save myself from the ocean I was drowning in and to collect all the thousands of pieces that I was broken into a one living, healthy, happy human being, I must choose this path, the path to peace. And basically, this is what I've been doing now for nearly 12 months, walking in the path to peace, dialoguing with Israelis, with Palestinians, with the international community like I'm doing with you now, with world leaders like Pope Francis, to activists and common people like myself. And then I learned 3 lessons that also I would love to share with you. The lesson of hope, the lesson of the future, and the lesson of forgiveness. And many Israelis and many Palestinians are now in despair. They say, we don't see hope. It's just bloodshed and the war will go on forever. And what we say that hope is not something you can lose or find. Hope is an action. It's something we are creating. And we create hope with other people. We cannot create hope on our own. We create it with other people by envisioning a better future and acting to make this future into a reality. And we must be very honest with ourselves if our actions are effective. Because if they are effective, it means that we're going to reach this future. And if they are not active, it's not a reason to give up. It's a reason to look for different actions till we find the one that is effective. So this is what we are doing now. Individuals and civil society organizations, Israelis and Palestinians with international community, we create hope on the ground. This is what we are doing. And then after dialoguing with so many Palestinians and living the reality, you see from India, I live it here on the ground. The difference between the Israelis and Palestinians was never that wide. It's unimaginable. The amount of fear, hate, wanting to revenge, the gap is huge. But Israelis and Palestinians meet in the future. We meet in the future that is based on shared values and principles. And this, just after talking to Palestinians from Gaza who lost family members, Palestinians from the West Bank, within Israel, with other bereaved Israeli family, we came to the principles of the future. Equality and dignity, shared recognition and acknowledgement, reconciliation and healing, and security and safety. So those are the values of the future. But in order to be able to resource yourself and invest yourself as a human, but also as a collective, as a people in the future, we must learn to forgive.
Absolutely.
And that's what I learned from Fauzi Azar Inn. He's an amazing Palestinian peace activist. I would love to connect, to make a connection, so you can also invite him.
Yes, definitely. So because I'm an artist and everything that you're saying, it feels like as if I'm painting them. Everything that you're saying, it feels like I can paint it. That is the beauty of your words. And it is, in spite of the fact that, yes, I agree with the fact that whenever anyone tries something different, it is called naive. But that is how revolutions are done. That is how changes are made. That is how we learn, unlearn, and relearn in life. Yeah. So the first question, sir, from our student is that we are witnessing blustering cleansing of culture and identity of both the societies, which is also very religious, which has been, propagated as religious, even though it is political. So what do you see next in the relative real politics? What are the main challenges in terms of the ceasefire negotiations, in terms of the hostilities, in terms of the extremists on both sides, be it Hamas or be it Netanyahu and the war cabinet? How do you understand it?
Okay. So before answering the real politics question, which are important, but I think the spiritual aspects and the mindset at the moment of the historical crisis we are more important, because we need to change the discourse and we need to change the human mind and human imagination that peace is possible. This is the fundamental part that I took on myself. So I want also to share the lesson of reconciliation and what my Palestinian partner said, that, and he was displaced. His family was displaced in the independence, with the independence of Israel and the Palestinian Nakba. He was displaced. His ancestor was displaced to a refugee camp, and all his life he lived under Israeli occupation. And then I heard him saying that he's willing to forgive about the past, he's willing to forgive about the present, but he will never forget about the future. Not to himself and to no one else, if we want to make the future better. So I asked myself, if I want to invest in the future, who shall I forgive? I literally asked myself, Maoz, who shall you forgive? And the immediate answer was Hamas. In my narrative, Hamas is an extremist, fundamental organization that is killing and oppressing his own people and innocent people in general. It's better if they are Israeli Jews. Hamas was acting within his nature on October 7th. And I've decided to forgive them. But I was seeking revenge. I wanted to punish. I want them to be accountable for betraying in my parents the Israeli government, which again and again in the last 30 years promised my parents security and safety. They kept promising us that they disarmed Hamas military options, that they demolished all the Hamas tunnels, that they deterred Hamas for many years. And in the most important days, they failed to secure and safeguard my parents. And I was seeking revenge. And I wanted to make them pay for what they have done to my parents. But those feelings destroyed me from the inside. I stopped functioning as a father. I stopped functioning as a husband, as a friend. I was just focusing in revenging in the Israeli government. So again, in order to cure myself, I've decided to forgive them. And forgiveness, it's a decision that each one of us can, and I would say should do, not for the benefit of the other, regardless to the other, but for our own sake. Because if we are seeking revenge, we are basically living in the prison and in the destiny those who harmed us build around us and choose for us. But if we want to be free, if we want to live productive, happy, creative life, to be focused in building a better future, forgiveness is a fundamental and very, very difficult decision that we can and should do. So after I learned about hope, the future, and forgiveness, I've decided to use what I learned in my previous life before October 7th as a tourism entrepreneur that worked mostly within the Jewish and Palestinian communities within Israel, and stating and preaching that the first step in reaching a shared society. And again, I've been to India once. My young son, my eldest son is 18 and a half, is now traveling from Leh in Ladakh to Delhi. Each country, each nation has its own problem. Between communities, between religions, between different classes. And what I learned is the first step in reaching a shared society and a shared future is knowing the other side narrative, the other side pain, the other side challenges, and also dreams and aspiration. There is no point in arguing we don't need to agree, but just to give space to the other. And then we stop seeing him as the other. We start seeing him as a human being, just like us. So this is basically what I'm doing now, humanizing Israelis and Palestinians. And for all those who saying that they choose a side, okay, we are pro-Palestinians, we are pro-Israelis, I argue with no one. I tell them that they are right. You're right, and you choose the right side because it's you. Of course you choose the right side. By choosing the right side, we are ensuring the conflict, the bloodshed, and the war will continue. If we want to end the war and the conflict, we must choose humanity. We must support the peacemaker, and we must work to create a dialogue between both sides. So within this framework, which is not just concrete action, but some like a spiritual work that I'm going through and I'm advising others to go, we can dream and create a better future for everyone between the river to the sea in the Holy Land.
Yes, what you're doing, sir, is very difficult at a personal level, specifically because it takes a very strong person to forgive. And it is also a very spiritual journey. It's a very difficult journey. Also, it often feels that the language that you're speaking, no one understands it because everyone is so caught up in their own trauma, pain, and grief, and that it becomes difficult to understand. And the biggest fallacy of communication is the idea to have that it has taken place. We all misunderstand that we have communicated with each other, but in reality, we're just responding or we're not processing or letting it drown us or letting it be in our soul. We are just listening to just reply.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So it's a lot of personal work and spiritual work. But what I can say that the demand and the reaction is amazing.
Yeah.
Is amazing. And I'm more, there is a demand for this message, growing demand from Israelis, from Palestinian, from the international community. And like I think I just said, like I need to rush like in 40 minutes to go and meet the deputy of the German parliament that is visiting Israel, who is the German ambassador to Israel, and a high official from the foreign ministry of the German. And so the demand for those messages is growing dramatically.
Yes, it is. Sir, our volunteer Gorang is saying that how does Fela Kuti inspire you, especially when beasts of no nation roam in the corridors of power on most sides of this conflict? More power to you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. Thank you. Fela Kuti who died in 1997. He was, for those who don't know him, he was a Nigerian activist and a genius musician. And for more than 10 years, I've been chanting words of one of his songs. The song's name is Viva Africa, Long Live Nigeria. And there he says, war is not the answer. War has never been the answer. And war will never be the answer. So he is guiding me for many, many years now. And with his music, with his spiritual messaging. So many times I'm saying that I was prepared for October 7th. When October 7th happened, I knew what to do. I knew that war is not the answer. I think I was the first Israeli who said we should not and must not wage war. Not just for the sake of the people in Gaza, of course, but also for our sake. War will never be the answer. You cannot justify making the other suffer because you were suffering by their ends. You cannot justify one wrongdoing with another wrongdoing. So for me, Fela Kuti is a very important figure in my life. Thank you for the answer, for the question.
It is whatever you're saying, sir, is so difficult, to imbibe. Irrespective of the context that you're talking about, Israel, Palestine, I'm sure that most of us and whoever will be watching it later can see the lessons that you have learned and what you're trying to preach also in their own personal lives, in our own little battles that we have,
So we need to coalesce together. We need
Yes.
to. This is why I was so honored, and I'm feeling privileged to speak to you.
Thank you, sir.
We must create a global movement.
Yes.
We must support each other
Yes.
with ideas, with thoughts, with amplifying each other, with recognize each other. And then to create a better, war is the worst. Human create wars.
Yes.
It's not a volcano eruption. It's not an earthquake. It's not a comment coming from the sky.
Yeah.
We are creating wars.
Yeah.
We can also decide to create peace. So if we have a global network of peacemakers, of models of reconciliation, of forgiveness, that will worship not the one who killed many, or I don't know what has done, to worship those or admire those who are able to forgive and to reconcile and to make them into our hero models. Then we'll change the discourse. We can change the discourse. We can create an alternative path for humanity. But it's an ongoing work. We'll never be able to say, okay, we worked enough. We are just a link in the chain.
Yeah, it is very necessary, specifically the more fragmented and alienated our society has become, where we don't even know our neighbors well. The communities are breaking because of capitalism. There's less communication, more technology, but less communication, more talking, less learning. So this is a very important initiative, sir, and I would personally love to be a part of it. And the next question, sir, is from our student Akshat Dwivedi, Dr. Akshat Dwivedi. The question is, I wrote an article in Times of Israel, Banality of Evil, Rise of Islamic Fundamentalism, but still looking for one answer. Why did Israel lose or is losing the psychological war? How did the Islamic radicals get success and create anti-Semitic movements?
Okay, I would say, but that I'm not an historian or a philosopher or religion researcher or a scholar. I'm an activist. I'm on the ground here in Israel. I lived here all my life. I'm ashamed to say, finished my bachelor degree. But I know that it's not a war between religion or a war of civilization. Jews and Muslims lived for centuries, for millennium, in the same communities, not harming each other in Asia, in the Middle East, and in North Africa. The Jewish people, we were suffering much more from European Christian. You cannot measure it even, okay? Jews and Arabs lived in pretty good neighborhood for millenniums. And with the rise and the beginning of the Zionist movement, 120 years ago, and the Palestinian national movement, the gap between our stories became wider and wider. And with each war we are waging on each other, the gap becoming wider like it is today. And both people, Israelis and Palestinians, we were hijacked by extremists that are using religion as a tool to create division, to polarize, to say that they are speaking in the name of God. But it also says, and I don't know much about Islam. I know a bit about Judaism, and it says in the Judaism that only God should revenge. Only God should revenge. It's not for people, for human. Human should reconcile, should love, should forgive. So those who support the war of revenge, and this is a war of revenge, and I'm saying from knowing, because a very established and highly reputation Paul Institute in Israel, they were doing a research in the Israeli discourse, and I asked them, can you add another question? Do you think one of the reasons for this war is revenge? And they told me, Maoz, of course, no one would say yes. No one is going to a war of revenge. It's insane. It's not Judaism. 72% of the Jewish Israelis said yes, that one of the reasons is a war of revenge. This is not about religion. Okay, this is not about Judaism or about Islam. This is about extremists that hijacked us. And you cannot kill a radical extremist idea or movement by bombs. You can defeat them by offering a better idea, a better vision, sometimes even more radical, like a radical reconciliation and radical peace. So no one in the last 30 years, since the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, who was assassinated not by a fundamental Muslim terrorist, but by a fundamental Jewish terrorist. And so for 30 years, we weren't playing in the game of ideas, in the games of vision. We were fooled to believe that we can manage the conflict. And while we were fooled, the extremists in both sides supported each other. And our current Minister of Treasury, he said 5 years ago publicly that Hamas is one of Israel's best assets. And he was funding Hamas. They are supporting each other. All the extremists thrive over hate, over fear, over bloodshed. And they use religion in order to do so. But this is not a war of religion. The religion is here just a tool that being used in a very misbehaved or dishonest way. But I don't hate Islam. I don't hate Muslims. And most of the Muslims and them won't hate Jews. They will say they have issues, problem, conflict with Zionism. But those conflicts must be solved and dealt with.
Yes, sir. It reminds me, your answer, it reminds me of a quote that I go back to whenever there are difficult times, and the quote is that it was never between you and them. It was always between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something which always empowers. And talking about the entire idea, there's certain kind of, this, I call it a very narrow-minded approach of looking at every human being from the lens of religion, or be it gender, class, caste. It's like putting all of us into boxes and trying to predict who we are and how we will act or react. And that further creates differences. And in every religion, there are extremists who use the fringe minority for their own benefits. I will not be
Mhm.
shocked if later, after a few years, we come to know that Israeli government and Hamas were having back channel negotiations all through this time. I will not be shocked.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's like because the optics they're trying to be say that whatever is printed in the newspaper is not true.
Yeah,
So that optics is something that we have to get out of. Another member, sir, has said, Anurag has said that your words and thoughts remind him of Nobel laureate Desmond Tutu and his famous work, No Future Without Forgiveness. Have you read
yeah.
it? He's
No, but I can tell you, I learned this. I'm saying we are, after facing such a deep sorrow and pain, it came natural. It's like this is like it's the power of nature to forgive. But
yes,
that's for me. Like I live, like I see the sun. I don't need to read a book of astronomy to tell me the sun will rise tomorrow.
yeah,
I feel it in my body that we
yeah,
must forgive.
yeah. It is our body has its own story. It remembers trauma in different ways and it speaks to us in different ways. And that is very important, sir, that you I love the fact that you are the abstractness and openness of your narrative of the future. It is very inspiring
Thank you.
because it's also very difficult to think in that way. For me specifically, when I was 10 years back or maybe 12 years back, when I started learning about Israel Palestine, it was very one sided, black and white. I
Mhm.
also visited West Bank in 2016. And then
Okay.
I saw a lot of nuances with my own eyes and differences. Um, and specifically after, October 7, I unlearned a lot, sir, at my personal level. And the idea was of creating Middle East Insights platform was that we will talk with everyone, no sides, because
Yeah.
everyone has a truth to say.
Yes.
And we cannot preconceive, judge, or be critical without even meeting and talking. That is something. So I'm very thankful to you, sir. The next question is by Tabassum, who says that thank you, sir, for your time and our condolences are with you and your family and thousands of Palestinians also. We hope for peace soon. My question is how the larger Israeli community sees this whole war ongoing for such a long time. How do they respond to it?
Again, the Israeli people and discourse are everyone are traumatized, everyone in fear, everyone are shocked. Some are humiliated because they thought Israel is the strongest nation on earth and we were defeated badly on October 7th. We are losing on a daily basis. Like there are more than 100,000, 150,000 Israelis refugees that cannot live next to in the northern border or in the southern border.
Yeah.
So they are hopeless and they are waiting, looking for answers. And when they have no answers, they think war is the only answer. Um, and also, we are living the trauma of October 7th. First, because of there are still Israeli hostages in Gaza, but because of the media and mainstream media is basically infusing into the discourse that this is a must war, that this is a must and a needed war.
Yes.
And they don't give voices like myself, but also many ex security forces, official and high rank will say the same as I do. They will say the same. that the war got no purpose and the war is not going to achieve anything, but they don't let us speak. We are being silenced and oppressed. And when we so but again, I'm saying that I'm always look on the bright side. So, and that yes, from the public there is more demand. If it's for me to come and speak in schools, in colleges, in universities, in private houses, and now even in media, like newspaper and others, and we are initiating our own peace events and peace rallies to really change the discourse. So now we are planning a 1 week. It will be in March, Peace Week. It will be multi-day, multi-location peace events for Palestinian and Israelis to share and amplify our radical solution for peace.
That is, sir, it must be very difficult being you also, and a lot of others like you, also being silenced by the media, not being given, any kind of presence because it doesn't feed their narrative. But I still think that Israeli media is much more open and much more democratic and than many other media networks in the world.
Yeah.
I like Israeli media.
Yeah.
And the second thing, sir, is that I agree with you. A lot of Israelis who had to leave their homes, as soon as the 7th of October started, they are now in northern part of Israel, underground, or put into different makeshift chambers. And I have several friends who are in such conditions, and it is quite traumatic to see them.
Yeah.
The
And
kind of
again,
because it's all like families and families, not just one person moving, taking a bag and going.
yeah, and as they are away, their house being demolished
Yes.
by the rockets and missiles from Hezbollah
Yeah.
or by Hamas. So it's it's very frightening. It's
Yes.
very frightening, and you don't see the end.
Yeah.
And the contrary, our current politician promising us that the future would look like the present, that the war will continue with no limits, and they don't care that we will pay the prices of this ongoing and endless war. I wanted first I will share my link tree
Yeah.
with all my social media.
Yeah.
So everyone, I would love to keep interact and speak with you, of course, and with all the audience. Like what we also realized is that there is this place. There were Greek mythology stories that took place here, but from Old Testament stories, Bible stories, and also history. And there are some myths that must be broken, and some myths that we must renew.
Yep.
And if it's okay, I would like to share one with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. So there is the Greek mythology of Andromeda that was sacrificed by a king father to the monster of the sea. Human been sacrificing our loved one since the beginning of humanity. What's happening now? It's nothing new. We've been keep doing it for so too long. And she was saved by Perseus. Perseus was the son of Zeus, the Greek god, and he killed the monsters. Perseus killed the monster when he showed the monster the head of Medusa, the monster Medusa. Medusa was cursed by Athens that everyone who would look to her in the eyes will die. But what we are saying is that the only way to kill a monster is by looking to her in the eyes. Only when you look in the monster eye and start dialoguing with her and start hearing her story And why and what made her become a monster? You killing her. You killing her metaphorically because she stopped being a monster. And if we were listening to Medusa, we would hear that Medusa was a beautiful Greek woman that was raped in Athens temple. And her trauma and her pain wasn't treated. It wasn't healed. The contrary, she was cursed. So in each one of us, there can be a monster and there can be an angel or good.
Yes, sir.
So the only way to overcome fear and hate is by looking to our fears in the eye and start working with them. But it's not going to be through bombs or killing.
Yes, sir. It is this mythological story will always stay with me. And talking with you feels today like not having a podcast, but more like a spiritual cleansing session. It doesn't feel like a podcast. It feels like a spiritual cleansing session completely. Like, it's a lot of healing because everyone who has been following October 7 or before has been traumatized to some level. So that is, it's very, it is bringing me also certain kind of peace. The last question, sir, is actually not a question, but a compliment is by our volunteer Shrishti Bera, who says that you have faced personal losses, but you still choose to forgive. That inspiring. If you can forgive, then why can't others? Sometimes doing something what people call naive is way better. Forgiveness is the beginning of restoring peace. Thank you so much, sir. Great learning. At a personal level, I'm just very thankful to you, sir, that I don't know if I would have been so forgiving if my parents were lost. I think I would have found a channel to focus my anger on a person or an entity. It can be even God. To blame. And I know what you are saying right now has happened naturally, but it would have taken a long time to happen at a personal level for you.
So first, thank you. Thank you. And I hope it's just the beginning of our joint coalition, partnership, and relationship, because we must have your support, and then we'll be able to support you and
Each
your
other.
communities
Yes.
and your movement and as one humanity. I want to have another minute if I can share another
Yes.
great words.
Yeah,
Great
you
words.
have all the
Okay.
time. When you have to
Thank you.
leave, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
From Pope Francis.
Yeah.
We were listening for our Pope Francis, Aziz Abu Sarah and myself. We met him in Verona at the Arena de Pace. And for an hour and a half, he was speaking about the importance of a conflict. That in a place where there is no conflict, it means there is an oppression and silence and dictatorship, because humanity is rising from a conflict. We learn, we progress through the conflict. So we should not build a wall between us or the conflict, or hide it, or ignore it. The contrary. But we, human beings, are the only creature on planet Earth that can decide. It's always our decision, our choice to solve a conflict through a dialogue. And this is the goddess part within each one of us, the ability to solve a conflict through a dialogue. And this is like I'm encouraging everyone to think this way. Not when there's a conflict, if it's, in our marriage, in our family, in partnership, and then between people. Not to run away from the conflict, but again to embrace it, to prosper and rise from it. And like my father, so I haven't showed you, just a second here. My mom was a very, very talented mandala artist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She painted thousands of mandalas.
Wow.
And for her, it was a way of living. She refused to take money from students. She said, I cannot take money if I'm teaching you the way of life. And I received only one mandala from her. She gave many to my sisters and my brother and received only one. And in this mandala that she gave me, she painted all our dreams can be fulfilled if we have the courage to chase them. And my father was a very amazing and admirable farmer, will always say, doesn't matter how devastating the year crop or field was, if it's because of drought or floods, he would always say, next year I will once again sow wheat. For coming year will be better. Coming year will be better. It's not a fate. It's annoying. We must know that next year will be better. It's up to us to make it. And then when we met Pope Francis, he said, and then I will finish with his words, let us not sow death, destruction, or fear. Let us sow hope.
Yes, sir. These are very it for me it's very spiritual. Today's session is very spiritual. I can't just define it beyond words now. Like, it's a very personal, it's a very visceral experience talking with you, and it has also helped in healing me, and I am pretty sure that it has also helped in healing a lot of other students who come from our own mindsets, from our own experiences, from our own journeys. And meeting you today has been magic.
Wow. Thank you.